Thank you to the speakers who have gone so far. It really boosted my confidence while I was sitting right over there and imagining myself standing right here. So I'm going to talk to you today about a startup journey, but I'm not here to talk about a business. I'm here to talk about myself, because what are we if we're not all our own startups? And I'd like to get started telling you and showing you somebody else's failure. So I'm just going to ease into my own story here. I went to Chicago over spring break and was at the Adler Planetarium with my kids, and the display that they had was a whole display. This is NASA and the Soviet Union, Japan, China, India, missions to space, missions that succeeded and missions that failed. And I already knew I was giving this talk, and so I stood there and I looked at it for a while and pictured that if my life were going to be on display, that I would like it to be in a nice one looking like this. So I want to leave that up there so we think about that. And I'm just going to share a few stories about the life that I wanted and the life that I got, and how the life that I got taught me to pivot and reinvent myself. So the first time I failed, my first failure, was right around 2000. Nothing like kicking off the millennium on a good foot. The life I wanted in 2000 was a graduate student. I wanted to be a professor. I enrolled in graduate school. I thought I was going to be a professor of contemporary Mexican literature and history. I was going to be interdisciplinary. And I was all set to go, and I got to my first day of class, cried in the bathroom in between classes. It just was not what I thought it was going to be. And that should have been my first hint, but I didn't pay a lot of attention to that. So I kept going, went to class that whole year, wasn't really listening to the voice that was telling me that wasn't a good fit, wasn't admitting it, and didn't ask for help either. Didn't really like what I was doing. But I kept going, and I quit graduate school really slowly. So I quit by quitting doing the homework, but I would still go to class. Then I quit going to class. And then eventually, I had an external event that I used to help me take a break from graduate school. It turned out my mom needed to have surgery. She needed a tumor removed. And it was the time I really was at the end of admitting that I could be in graduate school, that I wanted to finish. So it seemed like a good reason and an excuse that I used to say, you know what, I'm going to move back home. I'm going to leave school. I can always go back to it, but I'm going to leave school. I can take care of her, help her and my dad as she's recovering. So that's what I did. And I moved home. That was 2001. And I was really, really stuck in my head about how come I couldn't do the thing I wanted to do. How come I wasn't going to be a professor. I wasn't going to have this life that I wanted at a university. So I came home and got a job at a university. And even at the time, I didn't give myself credit for making a pivot like that, which was finding a role at a university, something that I wanted, but not in the way I had first pictured. So I got hired here at the University of Minnesota, and I started working in the admissions office. I still really felt the weight of not living up to my original plan, and it took me a while to get over it. Probably took till about 2004 or 2005. By then, I was back on track. I was feeling pretty good. I was married. I was still working at the U. I had children, and I thought I would go back to school. I found a new program. It was a really good fit with what I was doing. It was education policy, and the degree was a leadership and advocacy degree. It was a good fit with my work. So I felt like I was done failing. I had done it once, and now things were going to go really well. Around this time, I had the opportunity to run for the Board of Regents for the University of Minnesota. And the Board of Regents is the governing board here. It's like being on the corporate board or like being on a school board for a school district. And it's a board of 12 people. They get elected by the state legislature. And I was a current student. I was up at the UMD campus and eligible to run into the student seat. Now, it was a little unexpected. I hadn't thought of myself as doing that. I was approached by some friends who knew about the opening and thought that it would be a good fit for me. I think that's a way that a lot of women get into public service. And so it was unexpected on it. This time I could pivot a little bit faster. But I was working, I was going to school, I had a 2-year-old, and I was pregnant. About 6 months pregnant at the beginning, 9 months pregnant by the end. So this time I really knew I had to do it with some help. And it might sound obvious if I explain the situation I was in that somebody like that would ask for help during this time, but that was still pretty new to me. If I'd have had it my way, I would have run the whole campaign by myself and gotten myself there, you know, kind of bootstraps. But I physically couldn't do everything, and that taught me that putting together a team was the right way to approach it. And so I had a group of dedicated volunteers. I had 5 or 6 friends, and they had strengths and skills that I didn't have, and we put together a team that really helped me focus my energies on what I needed to do and who I needed to meet, where I needed to go, and they took care of a lot of other things for me. We put together a winning campaign, and in 2007 I was elected by the state legislature. I was the first Latina to be on the board, the first UMD student to be on the board, and the first non-traditional student to get elected. And I felt pretty good. I mean, I felt tired, I should say. My daughter was born 2 weeks before the election. And I got discharged from the hospital, and the midwife said I shouldn't vacuum. When I said that was fine, I didn't have any plans to go vacuum. I had plans to go campaign for another week. But I got elected, and it felt really good. And again, I felt like I was getting the life that I wanted. Even if it wasn't the life that I planned, I was doing what I wanted. And so then the plan was, I was married, I had this role with the university, I had 2 kids. I thought I was going to stay at home, do this as my part-time, unpaid service to the state of Minnesota, stay at home with my kids, have my house in the suburbs, and it was going to be great. That all stayed true for about a month. So I got it. And then in April, I left my marriage, left a bad situation, and left my marriage. And this time I left pretty quickly. This wasn't like when I left grad school. It was kind of like ripping off a Band-Aid really slowly. This was a little more decisive, and so that was something I had learned too. I did end up living in the suburbs as a stay-at-home mom, and that's because I was in my parents' basement. And I didn't have a job. And I didn't have a job because I had been working at the University of Minnesota while I was running for the Board of Regents. So when I got elected to the Board of Regents, well, it turns out you can't work at the place that you've been elected to be on the board. Small detail that no one on my team had researched. Really, we hadn't. So as that started to dawn on me, I was, again, kind of stuck in my head, not sure what I was going to do, thinking I really hadn't planned on any of this, and planned to be on the couch at my parents', planned to be married, planned to have all this set up. People, you know, and entrepreneurs talk about being the first to fail or being fast to fail. Nobody suggests you apply that to your marriage. That's what it felt like was happening to me. Kind of ahead of the trend, first one in my family, first one of my friends to get divorced. And divorce itself is not an unusual story. So that's not doesn't set me apart, I understand, really. But when it happens to you, right, when it happens specifically to you, it just feels really like you're failing. I spent a lot of time that year reading Joan Didion's book, The Year of Magical Thinking, where she describes magical thinking as when you're just stuck imagining what you wish would have happened instead of what's actually happening in front of you. So I did focus on the good, and I did focus on the Board of Regents. That was a thing that I had. And so I could direct some energy to that while I tried to take care of other things happening in my life. Then it got harder. Let's see. So in May, I graduated from my master's program. And then in June, my daughter, she was 4 months old, and she was diagnosed with a heart defect. And she was diagnosed with atrial septal defect. It's a hole in your heart. It's very straightforward. If you're going to have a heart defect, that's the one that you want to have. The pediatrician, the cardiologist assured me of all of that. But suddenly I was a parent of a sick kid. And the diagnosis at that time for her wasn't that she was so very ill. The diagnosis was wait and see. Some kids with a heart defect like that will grow and develop just as normal, and it doesn't phase or affect them. And some kids with a heart defect like that will need to have corrective action. It will be hard on their bodies, and they'll need to have it fixed. And at that point in the summer, the doctors didn't know. And so this was my phase of life of tolerating ambiguity. So the Board of Regents at the time was hearing about student developmental outcomes, which were a set of social and emotional skills that we wanted students to develop while they were in school at the same time as their academic and their content areas. And so I kind of clued in on these. One of those developmental skills was tolerating ambiguity. And I said, that's what I'm doing. That's what I did every day between June and November of that year. The ambiguity of not quite knowing how she was going to behave, how she was going to react, not knowing really how I was going to react either. So the ambiguity lasted till about November, when things got a little bit worse before they got better. And the ambiguity ended when finally at one of her checkups, the pediatrician said, she's not really developing, she's not growing the way that we would like her to. She actually was meeting her developmental outcomes, but she was just a tiny little thing. And so we were recommended to go in and get some treatment for her. And that's where the good news comes in. So I spent a lot of time on this half, right? She got treated here at the university when the Children's Hospital was still over on the East Bank. And about 4 days after her first birthday, she had a intervention, a medical device implanted. And shout out to the medical device community here and the research at the University of Minnesota. She avoided open heart surgery. And really the ambiguity lasted up until that morning because we didn't know which one would work for her. The situation she had was that, and the facilities at the University of Minnesota said, we're going to start in the morning and try to implant this device that will close the hole in her heart. And if that device closure doesn't work, then we're switched over to open heart surgery, and that's the way that we'll do it. So we'd had all the consults, and walking in that morning didn't know what would happen, which was a large amount of ambiguity to carry. But in the end, it was device closure was successful for her. Her cardiologist said he used a catheter he would use on a grown man, and she was a 14-pound baby. And she got the device, had a night in the hospital, and then we were home. That's a picture of her from a couple of years ago at the new hospital, which is where the cardiology clinic is, and we go once a year just to get a checkup. She is absolutely fine. She's great. It took me a little time to get over it. I told the cardiologist I saw him more than I saw most of my friends for a while there. But we got really good treatment. She got really good treatment. And 2008 was really a year of healing for her. And it was a year of healing for me as well. So her scar tissue in her heart was growing to close that hole in her heart, and I felt like my own scar tissue was growing and healing around me. And at that time, I was thinking a lot about Ernest Hemingway, who says, life breaks us all, and some of us get stronger in the broken places. And that was an image I was really holding on to, and something that I want to leave you with here, all of our strength on the inside. And I want to share this picture. It's one of my favorite pictures. This is Bridget's classroom today, last year actually. And so the teacher wrote a grant and got stability balls for kids to sit on. It's really good. It helps with their fidgety and can help with their attention. So those are their chairs. They're just up on their tables. And I knew they were getting the balls, and I knew that the students had to earn them in the beginning of the year, and the students got measured for them, and we got forms we had to sign saying it was okay if our kids sat on a ball. But when I walked into the classroom for the first time and saw him up there, I knew immediately which one was Bridget's. It's the little red one. She named it. It's named Baby B. And she had come home and told me that hers was different. Mommy, everyone else has the same and mine's different. I don't know why. Well, I know why, because she's just the smallest little peanut that you can imagine. So size-wise, she didn't fit on the size of all the rest of her classmates. And, it reminds me a little bit that she got a different start in life, and where she is a little bit different, but her resilience and her strength is that she doesn't notice that, and it doesn't faze her in that classroom. I try to take that example. The rest of my rebuilding story goes a lot better. There was kind of a downturn, and then she started to get better. I started to get better. And certainly didn't get the life that I planned. I got something more complicated. But each step of the way really taught me resilience, taught me to be decisive, to ask for help when I need it, and really to respond to others with empathy and with honesty and radical honesty. Last summer, I went on an exchange, a State Department fellowship to El Salvador for the summer. And that kind of didn't faze me. I got on the plane, I had a phone number and organization I was supposed to go to, and while there were a number of things about that seemed challenging, it didn't scare me. It didn't scare me to the level that things before had, and I thought, oh, this I can do. I'll meet people, I'll figure it out when I get there. And we did. In about a half an hour on my first morning, we figured out a plan, a project for myself. Later that week, when the guys showed up with motorcycles and said, do you want to take a ride? I was like, sure, absolutely. Not having expected I'd be riding motorcycles in El Salvador, but rolling with it, like able to do it, able to take the unexpected. I should say that every time I've had the chance to share my story, it's been good for me. I think as Jonathan said, each time that you get to go through it, you learn a little more about yourself and in some ways achieve a little more distance from some of those hard times as well. But I never regretted when I get the chance to share it. It reminds me always to have empathy and to bring my whole self to what I'm doing and to recognize that in the people around me as well. And finally, just to conclude with a good turnaround story, I went out and saw investors for what I was doing and my new plans. Last year I got awarded a Bush Fellowship for 2014, and I'm using that fellowship here at the Carlson School, getting an executive MBA. Finished my 6-year term on the Board of Regents, moved out of my parents' basement, actually just bought a house this year. It's my grandma's house, and so feel like it's a really good place for me and my girls. This is us now. They're so big. New boyfriends in the picture too. And I'm on plan B, maybe C or D. Hadn't imagined I would be getting a business degree right now. I hadn't imagined I'd stand up and tell all you about the last couple years. And so I still have that old story, but I no longer feel stuck in it, and I no longer feel like I'm spending a lot of time in my head thinking about what I thought was going to happen, and instead I'm able to deal with what is happening and look ahead and move forward. And that's what I have learned, and I appreciate you listening. Thank you.